Hello FlossTube, welcome to Cheeky Mare Stitches. I'm Cheeky Mare, or Libby if you prefer. Welcome to the new subscribers and welcome back to my existing ones. If you're new here, this is a channel about cross stitch and a little bit of quilting and some needlepoint at the end today. I'm excited to share my February update with you. So I do have a finish. You can see it behind me on the pool table. It is a quilt. It's a quilt top. It's not FFO'd, so I still need to take it to the long armor and get it quilted, the finished quilt part, and then it'll be on my bed. A super festive, springy rainbow. The fabric line is actually called Confetti, and it's an ombre. It's an ombre rainbow, so it goes from dark to light. So all the colors that you see in the different blocks are actually from, you know, all of the purples are from one strip of fabric that just goes from dark to light, all the blues and etc. So it's really pretty and makes things really interesting. It kind of gives it a scrappy look without having to be scrappy, because I'm bad with scrappy. So that's the quilt update. I do have a WIP debt -1, so hashtag WIP debt -1, yay. Good. I did have a cross stitch new start. I know I'm been saying that I'm not gonna do starts this year, but I have made an exception for gifts. So I didn't know at the beginning of the year that I was going to have a friend that I wanted to give a gift to, and so I'm not counting those. It's no new starts for my, you know, my stuff. It's just, so gifts don't count, in other words, because I had a baby quilt that I'll share next time, maybe at least pictures of it. Maybe I'll have my brother insert some pictures here of a baby quilt that I made for my cousin who's having her third child in April. And so I did make one that was technically a new start as well, but I did finish it, and it is being bound right now because I don't do the binding. But anyway, back to the cross stitching. So I did have a new start this month. It is called Not Today Satan by Magic Stitch Studios. This is what it'll look like when it's done. It's on a 40 count terracotta by XJU Designs, and 1/2 with most of the called for DMCs and 1 color and cotton. So that's what it will look, sort of what it'll look like when it's done. And here's what it looks like now. So the terracotta is showing a little orange, little mustardy on camera. Yeah, the terracotta is showing a little mustardy. So it's more red, not kind of like down where it drapes. Down here is more of the right color. But so the person that I'm giving this to has been an inspiration to me. I've been a little blue this month because of the weather, all the crap that's going on. And so she has a saying that some people will try and steal your joy, and you shouldn't let them. So I was inspired to do the Not Today Joy Eater. And like I said, it's on a 40 count that I got from XJU Designs. And working backwards is hard. Yay. And I think you're seeing it upside down. My brother set up the camera differently. That's okay. So Not Today Joy Eater, I've used color and cotton for the words, and it's the same one I'm using on another WIP that you'll see in a minute. And it's dark truffle. So it's kind of a reddish brown. In fact, if you didn't notice, I have colored my hair and also gotten it cut. And the color in cotton is very, very similar to my hair color. So it's kind of a purpley, reddy brown, and I just love it. And as soon as Color and Cotton has more, I will probably order a couple more skeins because I think it's really pretty and works on a number of fabrics. So that is my new start, and I should have it done in the next week so I can send it to her. Because she's just helped me, she's helped me kind of relax a little bit and not let some of the negativity that's going on in the world get to me. So anyway, the next WIP that I did a little bit more on now, I haven't been cross stitching too much this month because I've had some commissioned quilt tops that I've been doing. Well, actually full quilts, not just the tops. I've had some commission. I have four to five commissioned quilt tops in the works this month. It's been hectic, so I haven't actually had a whole lot of time to stitch, but what I did stitch I'm showing you. So this is the next one. It is Quaker Diamonds by Rosewood Manor. It's on a piece of 36 count bittersweet 1/2 with a week's dye works conversion. Here's where it was last time. I'm sorry about the quality of the picture. I'm so bad at social media because I would prefer in person. I take what I can get, but I prefer in-person stuff so much. And so I constantly forget to take pictures of my work before I start doing it. And so I keep taking screenshots from the previous video. So that's why the pictures are a little grainy. Anyway, so this is what it'll look like. This is what it looked like last time you saw it. And here it is now. And it's upside down because of the way my brother set up the camera. That's okay. He is helping me quite a bit. So here it is now. And as you can see, I finished this page. So I technically have a page finish. Yay! And I started on this page. So this is a partial page here. And I got half of the H done before I was like, all right, I'm done with this. So I don't normally work 2 months in a row, but I really do want to get this done this year. Mainly so I can maybe start another one. So that I finished that motif and started on this motif. Okay, and the bittersweet is actually showing up pretty true. It's a very pale pink, but it's kind of a rusty pink. If that makes any sense. All right, my next WIP, Quaker Seasons of Friendship. This is also one that I showed last month, and I just did a little bit of stitching on this month. Like I said, I've been very busy with some commissioned quilts, and it's on a piece of 40 count hand dyed by Rolanda. It's a beautiful piece of fabric. Love it. And like I said, I only did a little bit of stitching. This is where it was last time. I got all the way over to this side of the drawing, and I am using Silken Colors Chimney Sweep for this. It's a dark brown, and here it is now. As you can see, I just started a little bit more of the spring motif because I am so desperate for spring in the northern hemisphere. I've been wearing no coat outside. It's been like 40, 50 degrees. I've been wearing no coat outside because I'm just protesting the cold weather. And of course, you know, Mother Nature pays attention to my protests. Not really. So I finished off this partial motif in the fall quadrant, and then I started this motif in the spring quadrant. And it is beautiful, and I love it every time I work on it. I just have so many WIPs that I have to give love. And I wanted to do a few new for this month WIPs so that you could see some of that. Anyway. All right. My next WIP that I worked on was a partial ripping out, and I still haven't finished the ripping out, but and then a partial working on it. Get everything. So it is Anne Grimshaw, 1818 is the full name, and it's by Crown. No, it is not by Crown and Thistle. This is wrong. Do not. That was a copy over from the last slide. I will link it in the description box below. Shame on me for copy pasting, but everything else is correct. It is on 56 count Pearl Gray by Barbara Creations. She is also out of Hungary. It's 1/2 with a color in cotton, which is the dark truffle that I used on the new start and is very similar to my hair color. So this is what it'll look like when it's done. I love it. I love Quakers. They're just so satisfying because each little finish of a motif is like a finish. It's like, yes, finished it. And you know, this is my first sampler with an alphabet, because when I first started cross stitching, I thought alphabets were like kind of dumb. It's like, why do you want to stitch an alphabet? And I had a theory that it was in the chart, in the real chart, when these samplers first came out, that it was, here's an alphabet, stitch something useful, like a Bible verse or a funny saying or something, but don't just do the alphabet. Well, I guess learning some history, because history is important, that these samplers were actually kind of like your pattern. So ladies would get together and like exchange motifs and stitch them out so that later they could have them as a reference. So these samplers were not artwork, like, I mean, they were artwork, but they weren't meant, their full purpose was not meant to be artwork. It was meant to have a reference. And I didn't know that. So the more you learn. So now I do kind of appreciate the beauty of having samplers with letters, and I'm not mad at people now. See, if you understand people's point of view, you understand why they do things. I love it. So here it was last time, and if you recall, I had done my little stingy self and put some fabric on the edge so I could you know, you maximize the amount of fabric, and I had stitched all the way over to here and realized that I didn't have enough room. That is also a lesson. You should be frugal with some things, but other things you should be a little bit more, you know, you should be a little bit less frugal. So anyway, all of this was stitched. All of this needed to be ripped out. So here it was last time, and here it is now. I still have this to rip out. Ripping out on 56 count is not really fun, but here is where I am now. I have a little bit of the first side motif because I did want to make sure I had enough room. So a little bit of the first side motif and some of the alphabet that I learned was, oh, I missed a little leg right there in the bee. I'll have to go back and finish that. Shame on me. Anyway, so there's where I am, and I love this. I love how, because this pearl gray is like a very, very light, what is it called? Violet. So it's like if violet became a pastel, like it's a blue, purple. It's a purple on the bluer side, but violet's very dark. And so if violet became lavender, but lavender is a little bit more on the red side, I think. Anyway, but I love it. It's so pretty. And on 56 count, these little tiny X's are just so delicate and gorgeous. And while I have the young eyes to see it, I'm going to take advantage. So I'm going to use my young privilege. All right. So the next WIP I'm still working on. So it's in the Q-snap still. Not that it really needs to be. I could take it out. But I only had one day on it last night because I've been working so hard on the commissioned quilts. But here it is. It is the new normal by Long Dog Samplers on 40 count chalkboard by XG Designs. 1/2 with XG Designs variegated silk that I got a bunch of in a variety pack. And I started over here in this flower motif. Here's where it was last time. So I just barely got the circle in. And here it is now. I finished the circle. And then I started on, so I filled in this area here. Started doing the little stem. And I started filling out some of the border. And I was talking about maybe, because this variegated came with a bunch of overdyes that were more solid. They aren't quite solid, but they're more solid. So there was more of a pink, or more of a plum color, more of a pinky color, more of a dark, and they all were coordinating. And I was thinking about like stitching some of the motifs in those solid-ish overdyes. And I don't think so. I think I'm going to just keep them because I get by being careful and fussy cutting the thread, I can get placement. Like most of the circle is green, as you can see, or teal in the teal family. And then most of the flower part is in the purple family. And I just did that with fussy cutting. So I think that's probably what I'll do. And I'll just save the more solid colors for another project, which I already have in mind. Because X-Stitch MD, Shiloh, has been showing me all of her beautiful pictures. And I just want them all. But I'm not starting anything that's not a gift this year. Not starting anything. And I didn't, those things that Shiloh does, I wouldn't want to give away. Anyway. Oh, dogs are coming. Hi, Mira. All right. My last WIP that I worked on for a week and a half. I was dog sitting for my pastor, and because she was on vacation in semi-warm Arizona. Jealous, because the day she left, we got 8 inches of snow. I had to shovel. It took me a half hour to get out of her driveway. I I had to shovel and then rock and then shovel and then rock and then it took me a half hour. Luckily, I drive stick, so I have a little bit more control over how much you rock. It's quite fun. But I also drive a Mini Cooper that has about 4 inches of clearance, so that probably contributed a little bit to me getting stuck. But, you know, whatever. So I was dog sitting for a week and a half, so I had a ton of time to work on this project, and I love this project. It is my oldest WIP and my biggest WIP, and here it is. It is Lady and Unicorn by Thea Governor, and I have 2 page finishes. Now, granted, I had already started them, but I'm counting them. I have 2 page finishes. It's with the 27 count Jobelin kit fabric 1/2 with the kit floss. Here's where it was last time. So these 3 pages are done. I had started this page, and then there's some over here that I couldn't fit in the camera shot. So this page was partially started, and then this page was partially started. So anyway, so here's where it was last time you saw it, which was in January. And here's where part of it is now. So I finished this page. And I started this page because I could have had another page finish if I wanted to continue stitching here. But I was so sick of flowers, so I wanted to see something fun. So I started doing the mirror with the unicorn's reflection in it. So I finished this page here. Started this page. Started finishing this page down here. And I finished this top corner page up here. So you saw a little bit of this flower and a little bit of this flower on the before, and then I had this also stitched before. So I did this flower and this flower, and I'm so excited. And you know, some people are very picky about their coverage, and you know, they usually do 2/2 on 27 count or this size. And I've been doing 1/2, which is what the pattern calls for. And yes, you can see some of the red between the stitches, but it kind of gives it a little lacy look. So, you know, to each his own. If you don't like that coverage, you don't have to do it, but you maybe try a little bit new and think of it as a different patina or a different style. You know, you don't have to think of it as as these are pixels and you have to have the saturation of pixels. Maybe think of it as kind of an art form. Either way. All right, so those are all my WIPs that I did, this cross-stitching WIPs. I was going to discuss a little bit of needlepoint decorative stitches. So I've noticed several ladies, because several stitchers, I'm going to stop using ladies because men cross-stitch too. I've noticed several stitchers have been doing some decorative stitches instead of cross stitch in some of their little patterns, and I really like that. It's something reminiscent of my needlepoint days, and so I wanted to discuss some decorative stitches, because some people, if the decorative stitch doesn't fit exactly in the space, they think they can't use it. And that's not necessarily true. You can do something called compensating, and compensating scares a lot of people. So I thought I would share my technique on how to compensate. So first of all, I inherited a bunch of my aunt's needlepoint. when she died, my Aunt Susie. And this is a sampler similar to what I was talking about with Anne Grinshaw. This is a sampler that she had of all of her, or some of her decorative stitches that she wanted to use. So this is the modern day Anne Grinshaw sampler. You know, in 100 years, this is going to be, someone else is going to be replicating this and hanging it on their wall like it's artwork. And, you know, that's cool. Anyway, so these are some of her decorative stitches that she used on a bunch of her work. She also had a journal, a junk journal with the charts, and these are all fairly common knowledge stitches, so I'm not showing anyone's hard work and copyright. Sorry, I keep forgetting things are upside down. So she, you know, she would have the chart for the decorative stitch, and then she would stitch it so she would know what it would look like when it was stitched, because sometimes you can't really tell what it's going to look like. Like this one has two different directions. So if we look at this up close, it's got diagonals going this way and diagonals going that way. And when you see it stitched in the lower, in the light pink, when the light hits, there we go. When the light hits the right leaning diagonals, it looks like a different color than when it hits a left leaning diagonal, and it makes a really neat, so there's only two different colors in this particular stitch. There's a dark pink and a light pink, and the light pink looks a little grungy, and the other one looks a little bright depending on how the light hits it. So if I change how the light hits it, it changes the way the grungy and the bright look. So now it looks super bright because I'm leaning it the wrong way. So if I see, there's some bright, and then the opposite are bright. So that's something to add some neat variation on the stitches. But, you know, you don't always have, you know, a 7x7 square that'll fit in, you know. So how do you compensate for that? How do you make it fit? So we're going to use this pattern to demonstrate that. It's called Diagonal Triple Parisian. Reading upside down, and I have some dyslexia. So excuse me for not saying that quite correctly. And I have a sample of that on some graph paper. So here it is drawn out. So in cross stitch, on a cross stitch pattern, the little squares are stitches. In needlework or needlepoint or decorative stitches, each line is a line of fabric, a fabric thread, and each hole or each box is a hole. So that's how I think of it. When I'm counting for cross stitch, I count stitches, and when I'm counting for a decorative stitch, I count holes, if that makes sense. So like I said, we're doing this Parisian stitch, and if you see that on what I've drawn here. So this dark line is the border. Let's say it's a shoulder of a teddy bear or something that I'm trying to fill in. And, you know, you're getting to the pattern. So each one of these little squares is a hole, and you're using the pattern, you're going along fine because there's no boundary, and then, oh no, we get to the boundary. What do we do? Because the next stitch is a long one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's 5 holes diagonally. Well, if we count 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh no, there's only 4. So what do? Well, when I compensate, I just count what it is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh no, it's past. This is where it should go, but it's past my line. That's okay. Don't panic. Just go back to the hole where the line is. So in this case, my purple thread would, my purple thread would go up to the line here. And yeah, it doesn't quite look the same, but that's okay. It's on a curve. It doesn't have to look exactly the same on a curve. So the next square over would be another 5 square, or supposed to be. So I would count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Uh-oh, that's past. So then I go back to the line. And I usually go, so this line is right on between 2 holes. I usually go underneath the line because in needlepoint, it's a full coverage. All right. So again, in the pattern, the third one is also another 5. So you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you go back to the first hole under the line. So this one would be a 3 hole. This is a 3 hole, and this is a 5 hole. But it's in the right spot for the green. And I've shown how I compensated with the green already. So this is a 5. This was also supposed to be a 5. So it was supposed to go up here, but the line was under there. So I backed it off. This one was also supposed to be a 5 hole. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I backed it off to the next one. And then this one is a 3 hole. 1, 2, 3, right? Well, the 3 hole would be up here. That's behind my line. So I back off to the line. So that is how you can compensate with some decorative stitches if like you have a huge house and you want to maybe, instead of doing a whole bunch of cross stitches in a huge house, I have a brick, I have a brick decorative stitch that looks something like this. And it's hard to tell with crayon what it looks like, but so what you do is you have 1 2 hole, and then you have 1 3 hole, another 3 hole, another 3 hole, another 3 hole, and then you have a 1 hole and a 1 hole next to each other, or a 2 hole and a 2 hole next to each other. So this is like a tent stitch 1 over 1. And I'll send some pictures next time. We'll do a little bit more of this if you guys like it later on. If you like this explanation. So you have 1 hole, 3 hole, 2 hole, 3 hole, 3 hole, 3 hole, 3 hole, and then a 2 hole. So it kind of makes like a little rectangle when it's stitched. It kind of looks like this. And maybe I can show it on this. Something similar to it. So here, this, working backwards. So this orangey one right here is very similar, except the rectangles go sideways as well. But if you can imagine, so kind of like this one here, this brown one, it looks very much like brick, and you can stagger each row so that it looks like brick and grout, brick and grout. It's really quite nifty. But if you have a big house and it's going to take forever and you want to maybe speed it up a little bit, you could try a decorative stitch. If that makes sense. So anyway, that's a little bit of needlepoint. You can do some playing with it and see if it works for you with cross stitch. Now big, long diagonal stitches, you may want to use more than one thread to get the coverage that you want, because you are only going over the holes, over the threads once. So, and then with 2 threads, you might want to do like a laying tool. So anyway, so comment below if you want me to try any of these, like explain how to do some of these decorative stitches and incorporate them in like big chunks of color and cross stitch. You know, I want to see the 2 green check, or the leafy greens. Like, cause see, this kind of look like leaves. You could so add these into a cross stitch, just one of them as your leaves, instead of doing a whole bunch of cross stitches, you know. And I like cross stitch. I think it's really pretty, but there is some benefit to doing needlepoint decorative stitches, and just play with it. It's really fun. So that's all I have. Comment below if you like my hair color. My little vein snippet. It was supposed to be kind of a more brown with a hint of violet in it, but it turned out to be more magenta with a hint of brown. I don't know. It's pretty. It looks all right in the office. It doesn't say purple. Shocking. You know, it does a little bit in the sunlight, but you know, how often are you in the sunlight when you're supposed to be professional? Not very often. Anyway, so thanks to my new subscribers. I think next month I will do a giveaway, because you guys have been so good to me. So thanks for listening, and if you've made it this far, I appreciate you. Hope you have a nice March, and have fun, be safe, and have a good day.